Hey friends, I'm Kristina Guerrero, former small-town girl with dreams of Hollywood and red carpets and a belief that I could make those dreams come true. So, I did. But life had more in store for me. From a drinking problem to getting sober, then a breast cancer diagnosis, and finding God, I discovered a strength in me I never knew I had. I wrote a memoir about my life she believed she could. So in each episode, I'm sharing one chapter from my story. From page to podcast, this is She Believed. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I am your host, Kristina Guerrero, and I'm just super grateful that you guys are joining me on this trip down memory lane. I can't believe we're on episode 8, although I said that at episode 6 and 5 and 4 as well. Sorry if I'm getting a little redundant, but I feel like I'm finally getting the hang of this thing. And, this is only supposed to go up to 10 episodes. It's a limited series. And so I'm like, oh man, I'm just getting the hang of it. I'm already going to cancel myself. Sorry, you've been canceled after one season. No, actually, at this point, what I'm trying to do, if I can just share with you a little bit of my journey right now, but now that I've got a handful of episodes under my belt, I have started sending them out to people. My goal is to be rich and famous. No, my goal is to grow a podcast empire. Kidding again, but not completely out of the question for me, right? No, I'm just trying to get this podcast out into the masses, and so that hopefully people will get it and get something out of it, be inspired by it somehow. So that's kind of where I am. I never imagined myself as an entrepreneur, but well, here I am being an entrepreneur of my own project, something that I've, other than my memoir, have not really done before. And so that leads me to believe that the second part of my life is just a new chapter for me. You know, I don't want to say that I've counted on other people to get me where I am today, because I have certainly put in the work and done the things, but I've counted on other people giving me a yes. You know, I've relied on other people to validate me and say, yes, you are good enough. Yes, you are hired. Yes, you're worthy. And I just think in this next chapter of my life, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to do it on my own terms. But that doesn't mean I don't want the help of some investor who has a crap ton of money that wants to throw my way for production and marketing. Call me. Anyway, it's so interesting because I went through this chapter, and this chapter in my memoir is called Forever Brown Girl, and just could not find an excerpt that said all of the things that I wanted to say in this episode, because it's so complicated and it's so nuanced. There's so many parts of it that I want to share, and I just couldn't get it into one little excerpt. So it actually took me a long time, and I actually had to cut and paste and put some things here and there just to be able to give you just a little sampling of this chapter. So should I just read it? Good grief. I've been talking forever. Read the story, Guerrero. This, by the way, my coffee mug, for people who are not watching this on YouTube, has been a prop this whole time. Got the coffee mug, thought I was going to sit here and drink coffee, but there's nobody else to listen to. So what am I going to do? Just stare into the camera and drink my pretend coffee? That's weird. So anyway, maybe when I have guests, I'll be able to drink out of it. Nice and cozy. All right, let's read, shall we? So this chapter is called Forever Brown Girl. I'm brown, by the way. I am a proud Latina, a second-generation Mexican-American who deeply loves my culture, who I am and where I come from. I love my brown skin, my dark eyes, and the fact that I finally learned how to transform my frizzy hair into the thick, glorious mane it was always meant to be. I love the music, the smell of fresh tortillas, and the sound of the language. In a world full of vanilla, my culture is the richness that grounds me and connects me to home and my roots. I feel grateful knowing that for me to stand where I am today, my not-so-distant relatives made the journey from Mexico to the United States in search of a better life. But that appreciation wasn't always the case. Ugh, jeez, why do we have to be so Mexican? That's me as a little girl. As I got older, I certainly embraced my brownness more, realizing that I really did love my culture. I was in a town where there was a big Mexican-American influence, so it was easy to find and I suppose easy to take for granted. But I loved going to weddings and quinceañeras, listening to mariachi music and bands influenced by ranchero and tejano music, and dancing cumbias. I even had a quinceañera of my own, a big poofy pink dress, a customary waltz, and grandma and mom in the kitchen serving up chicken mole and rice and beans on paper plates. If you Google my name, you'll see that I was the first Latina host and correspondent at E! News. I've always worn that as a badge of honor. But if I'm being honest, there wasn't anything particularly special about me. I just happened to show up first to a party that none of my people had been invited to yet. Frankly, all these shows were late to the party anyway. And by the time I arrived on the scene, it was like they all realized, wait, we don't have any brown people on the show. Maybe we need to hire one? Timing is often everything. Talent sometimes comes second. And look, I don't want to diminish my own hard work. I put in the hours, starting at the bottom and climbing my way up so I'd be ready when my number was called. But the reality is there were plenty of talented Latinas working hard long before I ever set foot in Hollywood. They just weren't given a shot. And that's true far beyond television. I wholeheartedly acknowledge that teachers, community organizers, social advocates, and journalists reporting on the front lines of the issues that affect the Latino cause fall 1,000 times higher on the leaderboard of importance compared to Hollywood red carpet correspondent and lifestyle TV host. But I'm so proud that I've been able to play a small part in representing my people with the platform I've been given. There is a responsibility to represent my people in the best possible way, be on my best behavior, stand confidently, speak eloquently, and put my best foot forward. I think a lot of marginalized communities feel this way. There's already enough negative stuff being said about us. We don't ever want to give reason for more. So believe me when I say that my reputation as a Latina who climbed her way from poverty to college and then to a dream career makes for a great story. And sometimes I wonder if I should just leave it at that. Recently, I met a young Latina who told me that watching me on E! Back when she was in high school made a huge difference on her life. One of the most gratifying, soul-fulfilling experiences for me is hearing from brown women who say that seeing me on their TV screens made them believe they could do what I do. I'm humbled and honestly a bit blown away by that. But yes, that is exactly what I wanted, to see someone on TV who looked like me and to feel like there was a place for me too. She told me that meeting me was a pinch me moment, and part of me wanted to leave her perfect image of me untouched. Why shatter it by admitting that while she was watching me poised and confident on TV, I was actually falling apart on the inside? I didn't want to disappoint her. I don't want to disappoint anyone. There is so much that I want to say on this topic, and I really hope that I can truly and authentically and honestly articulate everything that kind of goes into this chapter. It is a part of me. I mean, that was just a little portion of just one part of my identity of being Latina. And there are so many more. So let's start with this one. The responsibility to be perfect, to represent my people in a good way, for them to feel proud to see me on TV. And I know this because I feel that when I see other people who look like me on TV. Like if you have a Spanish surname, I immediately go and Google you. And I'm like, where is she from? Who is she or he? What's their story? How did they get here? It just means so much. I don't know that white people do that. Do you? Call me and let me know if you do. Is this exclusive to brown people? I don't know, but I do. I remember the first time I saw Eva Longoria on TV during the early 2000s, and I was just coming up in my career, and there was this huge billboard for Desperate Housewives outside of my apartment building. And immediately, I lock into her brown hair and her brown eyes and her brown skin. And I was like, there's just an automatic connection. I don't know how to explain it. And I do this all the time. And so I'm not saying that other people do that when they see me on TV, but I'm going to say that it's happened because I've heard from them. And that is just such an honor and such I'm trying not to use cool because I used cool so much in the last episode. When I was editing it, I'm like, Kristina, do you not have any other words than cool? Anyway, so that has meant so much to me. And I hear from young Latinas who have reached out and have said, when I saw you on TV as a little girl, I recognized you. When I was in San Antonio and hosted my own morning show and was front and center, I heard from grandmas and tias who were watching the show who called me mija, who just felt so connected and so supportive and so loyal to me. Did I say so protective? Because they were very protective. Because there was an instant connection, and that has meant so much to me. And I've never taken that for granted, right? When I was at E! News, I was always trying to make sure that we were covering the Latino artists and covering the movies that Latinos were in. And I just was like, if I'm in this position, if I'm in this opportunity to be able to make room for more of us, then I need to take it. Even though I was the first Latina at E, there were a few others that came after me, like Liz Hernandez and Arlene Santana. And it was really cool to see those faces in the studios and see those faces in the hallway. I never felt any competition, although within our community, I mean, there's some competition, right? And I get it. There's a finite number of opportunities in anything, but I can only speak specifically to Hollywood and entertainment. There's a finite number of opportunities for Latinas and for people of color. And so it can become very competitive. If you win, then I don't win. I never really saw it that way. I always felt like if you win, then I win, then we all win. And so that wasn't always met. That wasn't always reciprocated, but I always tried to put that foot forward. I know that because it's the way I was raised, right? It's the way that I grew up. Again, I can only speak to my community and how I grew up. But yeah, no, if one person was winning, you want to see them win, but you don't want to see them win too much, right? Get too big for their britches. Te crees mucho, which means you think too much of yourself now. But I really resisted that. I really tried to resist that narrative. And so I really tried to be inclusive and make sure that I had, I had my little post. And if I could bring more people in, I always tried to do that. So while I felt this enormous responsibility to represent my people in such a way that they would be proud of me, yeah, no, I've definitely thought, you know what, Guerrero, maybe you should just leave all of this bummer stuff just kind of tucked away. I've talked to family about this, but definitely within our culture, talking about mental health and talking about issues at home or in our families, like personal struggles, it's just like off limits. You don't talk to people about that because they're going to go gossip about it. They're going to spread the word and then everyone's going to be gossiping, chismeando. Like, I wonder if my mom or like my grandma, thinking back, if my grandma knew that I was talking about this stuff, I think she would be like, sin vergüenza. Aren't you embarrassed to say those things? You should be if you're not. Like, we don't talk about that kind of stuff, but also not talking about a lot of the stuff that I grew up with because we didn't know how to manage it or we didn't know how to deal with it or because you just don't talk about stuff like that. Man, that messed me up. It made me feel like I was alone on a lot of things. Like I was the only one who's going through this one thing. And so my hope and my goal is that in sharing my truth, it makes it easier for somebody else to come out and share their truth. That's not exclusive to one culture or another, but particularly within the Hispanic community, the Latino community, it is definitely not something that is the norm. So I've seen like there's been a bigger push within like the younger generation to be more forthcoming and to be more honest and to be more transparent about mental health issues and the things that we're going through as a way not only to heal our generational and cultural traumas, but also as a way to hopefully open that up to then even more generations to just be more healthy. So on the one hand, I want to represent my people in such a way that is perfection. I have a problem with perfection and I'm a people pleaser, that I'm hoping that I can be a proud and confident and successful Latina who also struggles with insecurity and with identity and mental health issues. And both of those things are true and both of those things are real and both of those things are okay. That's what I hope for. And so accepting who I am and my identity has been a journey all on its own, because I consider myself Latina. I'm Mexican American, second generation, but I'm from like a small cow town in Washington State, right? Like, where's my street cred? Where's my street cred to be Mexicana? So interesting, because people are like, hey, you're from Washington State. There's Mexicans in Washington State. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many Mexicans in central Washington. I went to Seattle, which is about 3 hours from where I grew up, and I was in college. So I get to the big city of Seattle. I'm in this class of like 800 people, and I am the only brown person in this class. I'm like, where are all the brown people? It was a complete culture shock for me, right? It was just different. Where's my street cred? It's a good one, Guerrero. So coming from Washington State, didn't feel like I had a whole lot of street cred. And on top of that, I don't speak Spanish. All right. How many of you guys just did the big ol' eye roll? Oh, another Latino who doesn't speak Spanish. Nope. Guerrero doesn't speak Spanish. My default is, well, I don't speak Spanish, but I speak Spanglish. And that's not true either. I don't speak Spanglish, but I find that like offsets the judgment from my brown brothers and sisters. And then I don't hear from white people like, what kind of Mexican are you? You don't like spicy food and you don't speak Spanish. No, I don't like spicy food either. Okay. My street cred isn't getting any better, is it? The only time I could speak pretty good Spanish is when like my grandma was around and she only spoke Spanish. I spoke to her in English. That's how we communicated. But literally, like Spanish goes, I understand it. Spanish goes in my brain, right? Goes into my ears, into my brain, and then out my mouth in English. Not being able to speak Spanish is what it is. You know, I think not being able to speak Spanish is one thing, but coming to terms with the reason why I don't speak Spanish was a little bit harder for me. What I mean by that is that as a little girl, I felt a lot of shame speaking Spanish, right? Like it's not like I didn't speak Spanish. I didn't want to learn how to speak Spanish. My older sister, she's fluent. We're only 2 years apart. And I was like, no, thanks. Not going to do it. And there was like shame associated with speaking Spanish. And I don't know where that came from. You know, I one time said that it was my mom who was like, no, you can't speak Spanish. But that was like a blatant lie because I was ashamed and embarrassed that I was just, I mean, I was a little girl. So I'm just going to give myself some grace in that. But somewhere in there was shame in speaking Spanish. And I wanted to assimilate. Right? You speak English. You be as American and as white as you possibly can be. You blend in as much as you can so that nobody looks down on you. And you know, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, gosh, that's so sad for that little girl to think that. Why would she think that? And then I see what's happening in the news today. And I think, how could she not think that? I just somehow picked up on that. And I'm so not sad for her. She's fine. She turned out all right. But clearly there was something already in the community that I was picking up on, even in my small town in Central Washington, that I was picking up on, that there was a superiority and there was a hierarchy. And I wanted to be a part of this superiority and this hierarchy, and speaking Spanish and being brown and having dark hair and dark features did not make me even, or did not make me equal. And then at some point, like I realized that was all bullshit. Right. And I'm grateful for that. Yeah. But it wasn't until I got to college that I really embraced who I was, but almost as a life jacket of survival. So I'm living in Seattle. There's not a whole lot of brown people. The only brown people that I know came with me from Central Washington State. And, I started taking classes. There was a minor at the University of Washington, Chicano Studies, and they have that a lot at a lot of colleges, but they had Chicano Studies, and I started taking these classes, and it was the first time that I really started to understand the plight of our people, that I really started to understand the discrimination against our people, the injustices against our people. And with that, really started feeling this sense of pride and this sense of protectiveness of my people. And I wanted to protect, and I wanted to be a part of, and I wanted to be a part of like the resistance. And I remember sitting in these Chicano Studies classes, learning about these awful, awful history of Mexicans and Mexican Americans in the United States, and seeing riots and discrimination and police brutality and unfairness and dehumanization. And this is like early 2000s, and being angry about it, but also being grateful that that was not the world that we lived in anymore. How about that? Seeing these pictures and these videos of violence against Latinos in the early 1900s to the 1940s, and then the Chicano movement in the 60s and 70s, and thinking in 2000, thank you for the civil rights work that you have done so that I can sit in this class at the University of Washington amongst my other Latino peers, learning about what you have done so that we don't have to do this anymore, so that we don't have to experience this anymore. That's in 2000. Here we are in 2025, 25 years later, and we turn on the news and we see what's happening to our people in a way that is violent and that is inhumane and that is without any sort of value of who they are, not as Latinos, as Mexican Americans, or as immigrants, but as human beings. And I distinctly remember seeing these videos and these pictures in my Chicano studies class thinking, I couldn't even imagine what it would be to be alive during that time. And here I am, alive during that time. And it is maddening that we still find ourselves here. The things are today the way they were in the 1940s when Mexicans were being rounded up and sent to Mexico. Many of them, more than half of them, American citizens. And that was in the 1940s. And here we are in 2025, and that's still happening. So my pride runs deep. My grandparents came here from Mexico. Both of my parents were born in the States, and then so was I. And so I don't have an immigrant story. I don't have that struggle necessarily of being in a place that is so desperate that you have to leave behind your home so that you can go and start and build a whole new life for your family. But I can empathize and I can respect that kind of sacrifice to come here, to work, to put food on the table. Because while I didn't do that, my grandparents did. And because of their sacrifice and their fight and their hard work, I am able to sit here and do what I do, right? The generation doesn't just stop there. That generation and the generation now is planting seeds for the future of what could be. And so for me, it's just horrifying. It's horrifying to see. It's horrifying to see my people dehumanized in such a way. And I think like that could have been my grandma or my grandfather or my mom, who worked out in the fields in her early 20s. And it's just heartbreaking. So one of the questions that I've constantly gone back and forth with is, am I Latina enough, right? Am I Latina enough to stand up on stage and just be like, I am Latina, I'm Mexican American. And also it's interesting because this is not exclusive to me, as I now know, right? So many Latinas who are in the public eye have said the same thing, wondering, are they good enough to represent our people? Because maybe you don't speak the language, maybe because you're third or fourth generation, Dominican or Puerto Rican or Cuban or Mexican American, and just not feeling like that connected, but still feeling so connected. And I've asked myself that question before. And yes, while I am American as they come, there is an unseen and an untangible connection to my Mexicanness that is just there. And you know what? Here's my conclusion is that I am Latina. I'm a Latina enough for me, right? I'm Latina enough for my children. I don't know. You might say you don't speak Spanish. And gosh, if I heard this one, you might think, hey, you don't speak Spanish, you're not Latina enough. I think that's the big one, is the Spanish. If you don't speak Spanish, I wonder if I spoke Spanish, would I feel less judged? Because that's really what it comes down to, right? It doesn't come there's no meter for being Latina enough. It's whether you feel worthy to call yourself Latina. And not just that, but by whose metrics are we deciding that? I have been made to feel that I am not Latina enough. It's not nice. For those of you out there, it's not nice because I didn't speak the language or because I don't have street cred because I'm from a farm town in Washington State. But I'd say that the reason I have felt that I am not enough is because of the way people have made me feel. And it's not always been nice. But I think everything else in my life, where I am at this point, is that I need to just be enough for me, whether that's mom enough, whether that's career enough, whether that's worthy enough, whether that's Latina enough, whether that's spiritual enough. I just have to be enough for me. And so I just hold my identity close. I share it with my children, with everything that is going on in the world. I remind them all the time the value of their culture and the value of their ancestors, the value of their brown skin and of their dark hair and their family and the music and the movies. I mean, Mateo told us that he didn't like Coco. And I'm like, no, bro, it's not going to work. We love Coco. We will love Coco till the day we die. We will love Richie Valens and we will love Selena and we will love tortillas and we will love Coco. Okay, that's just the way it's going to be. And so both my husband and I both instill that love and that culture into both of our children. And we remind them often how important it is. Am I Latina enough? Yeah. I think what it comes down to is I'm just going to be enough for me. And I can't control what anybody else thinks. And I certainly can't try to figure out what it even means to be Latina enough. So I'm just going to continue to love my tacos, speak the few words of Spanish that I can, and watch Coco every Dia de los Muertos. Make my kids watch it too. So that's that. I was trying to figure out a segue for the next episode, and I just don't know how to go from being Latina enough or forever brown girl into breast cancer. So I'm just going to make the hard turn. Next week, this was the sucker punch that I did not see coming. Being diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago completely flipped my world upside down. Next week, I'm going to talk about why it's probably one of the best things that has ever happened to me. And that's the God's honest truth. So you guys, thank you. Gracias por venir. I'm not even going to try because I'll just embarrass myself. But you guys, thank you guys always so much for joining me and being on this journey with me. If any of this resonated with you, please reach out to me. I'm like just dying for feedback. I'm not dying for feedback. But feedback would very much be appreciated. If you want to leave a note, leave a review, 5 stars, man. This podcast life is gangsta. It's tough. It's tough out there, man. But I'm having a great time doing it, and I just feel like there's a bigger purpose on the other end. So if you could just like help spread the word, I very much appreciate that. And then let's talk cancer, the big old C, next episode. All right, guys, we'll see you then. Hey, you're still here. Man, your dedication to get to the end, that's inspiring. I'd be so grateful if you hit that follow button and share this episode. And if you really loved it, hey, leave a review, because validation is my love language. Until next time, in the immortal words of Journey, don't stop believing.